dear colleagues and friends, we are waiting just more 2 minutes to give the 15 minutes, academic 15 minutes of delay to the beginning of our work this afternoon. And this way, we believe that the more colleagues that didn't have time to finish the lunch will join us to the beginning of our session. Okay, 15 minutes passed. Unfortunately, it's impossible to hear this wonderful music and the words that will be expressed about this important issue that we are debating here in Marrakesh. So we will go on with the list of speakers about the general debate. And the first one in my list is our my good friend, bin Salman Al Musallam, the Speaker of the Council of Representatives of Bahrain. Excellency, you have the floor.
In the name of Allah, most merciful, most compassionate, peace and blessing. Honorable Duarte Pacheco, the President of UIP, Mr. Rashid Talbi, the Speaker of the lower house of the government in Morocco, the Honorable Nam Mayara, the Speaker of the upper house in the government of Morocco, Honorable Mr. Marta Chungan, the Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Union. Ladies and gentlemen, dear attendees, good morning to you. Peace and blessing of Allah be on you, ladies and gentlemen. In the beginning, I'm honored and privileged to convey to you the greeting of His Majesty the King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, King of Bahrain. May Allah preserve him for his people and his wishes for a successful deliberation of your conference on interfaith dialogue, which working together, particularly this is our destiny and future, which is convened jointly by the International UIP and the Parliament of Morocco in collaboration with the United Nations Alliance, and the Mohammadi League for Scholars. Dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly the world of today needs more collaboration and needs more joint efforts in order to strengthen the values and the principle underpinning coexistence, more particularly in order to prevail among the peoples and communities of the world, as is seen in places and zones that are war-torn, and that really, particularly, they have failed to use diplomacy in order to solve their problems, and particularly these places where really terrorism prevail, and so the first victim is the human being itself or himself. Ladies and gentlemen, the results accruing from the interfaith dialogue to secure the rule of law requires from us very effective and efficient collaboration between religious people and parliamentarians in order to confront the challenges that are joint challenges, particularly, and leading to really very efficient results, particularly, and meeting the goals and expectations of the world at large and the public. Ladies and gentlemen, my country hosted Bahrain in last March, and under the patronage of His Majesty Hamad bin Isi Al Khalifa, King of Bahrain, may Allah preserve him, the deliberation of the International Parliamentarian in its 168th session. And His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, sent a message through his orientations in order to really ask for the rule of law to be preserved and continued, and also to continue the work in addition to really strengthening collaboration and particularly focusing on ways and means how to ban and bar hatred speeches and discourses, particularly in the internet platforms, or the disdain of religions, more particularly, or asking or calling for terrorism. We need to do all we can, leave no stone unturned in order to ban and bar all these things, in order to really build up fraternity and friendship, particularly through a number of actions that can be made by asking and calling for tolerance. Dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom of Bahrain really is proud of its humanitarian heritage, and particularly is calling for more tolerance and coexistence, particularly through the declaration of the Bahrain government. Particularly, a number of initiatives have been taken in all walks of life. And finally, on behalf of the Kingdom of Bahrain, I would like to thank immensely the Kingdom of Morocco under the leadership of His Majesty Mohammed VI, King of Morocco, and to the Moroccan Parliament for the hospitality and warm greeting that we received, and for the contributions Morocco has been able to do, and for efficient work of the parliamentarians. And may Allah bless your path with success. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for your words, but allow me to express the gratitude of IPU for the warm welcome and the commitment that all the Parliament, His Majesty the King of Bahrain, and yourself gave during our assembly last March in your country, and how it was possible to confirm, not by words, but with our presence there, the tolerance and the friendship of your people that is essential in our organization. And now I will give the floor to our colleague Tiairi, member of the Council of States of India. Please, you have the floor, dear colleague.
Honorable Chairperson and distinguished guests, I thank the Chair for according me the opportunity to participate in this general debate and share my views on subject that had a direct bearing on democratic governance of countries across the globe. Distinguished delegates, we all know that religions have had a profound influence on the political behavior of states as it had on individuals. By bringing political and religious leaders together, this conference, without doubt, provides us an apt opportunity to resolve common challenges that our society are facing today. India is a staunch supporter of peace and democracy and strongly believes in social harmony, mutual respect, and non-discrimination among different groups and communities, the core proposition of universal brotherhood. India has a long and rich history of inter-religious coexistence. Ours is the land that has given birth of several religions of the world like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. We also have a long history of secular governance and inter-religious harmony. Distinguished delegates, our Constitution, which is a result of rich debates and discussions of about 3 years, provides for the protection of individual rights and freedom, including the unimpeded practice of religious beliefs. It provides for a secular state that does not promote or show prejudice against any particular religion. Our Constitution guarantees the right to freedom of religion to the people. Fundamental rights to practice, profess, and propagate religion of one's own choice. It allows religious communities to manage their own interest, to build and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes. Our 7 decades of constitutional journey have stood the test of time. We have had our presidents, vice presidents, and also prime minister who belong to the minority communities. Our constitution recognizes 6 communities as minority, such as Christians, Sikhs, Muslims, Buddhists, Parsis, and Jains, so as to provide additional state support and extend special benefits under certain schemes and of programs. We have a dedicated Ministry of Minority Affairs that specializes for implementing various programs for social, economic empowerment and education of the minority communities. Who constitutes about 20% of our total population. We have enacted the Hajj Committee Act 2002 that establishes a special committee to oversee issues relating to Hajj pilgrims. I must share with you that it is the fact that largest overseas activities undertaken by our government, annual quota of India for Hajj pilgrims has now become 200,000, and we are making every endeavor to provide better facilities and amenities for our pilgrims. India believes that promotes the philosophy of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that is word is one family. To save humanity during COVID-19 pandemic, India supplied pharmaceutical assistance to about 150 nations and COVID vaccines to over 100 countries through our Vaccine Maitri program, with special emphasis on supplying vaccines to the global south. India holds the proud privilege of housing the G20 Summit 2023, and the theme of the summit has been One Earth, One Family, One Future. That is reflective of India's worldview of an inclusive new global order, as G20 nations acknowledges in the significance of interfaith dialogue in maintaining peace, stability, and prosperity. The G20 interfaith forums undertaken regular debate on how faith-based organizations can advance special social and economic developments. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying that India is a peaceful and harmonious country that upholds the values of Dharma and Ahimsa. In India, we all identified first and foremost as Indians, and that binds us all together. I urge all the parliamentarians, leaders, and scholars present here to collectively pursue the agenda of world peace, progress, and prosperity. Let us collectively fight the decisive forces which do not want us to be united. Hatred and violence have no place in our civilized world. It is this faith and belief in collectivism that will keep us remain strong and united. Thank you. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi means peace, peace, and only peace. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear colleague. Our greetings to the Indian people. And now I will give the floor to Madam Asha Al-Manai, representing the Doha International Center for Interfaith Dialogue. Madam, you have the floor. It will be a pleasure.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet, his kith and kin, and all his companions, the fellow prophets and messengers. I would like first to thank the International Parliamentary Union and to thank the Moroccan Parliament as well for their kind invitation to attend this very important conference. I represent the International Doha Conference for Interfaith Dialogue in the state of Qatar. We have been addressing this interfaith dialogue topic and also other topics that is as part of the interest it takes in this, and the state of Qatar built this center in 2007, and there have been annual meetings and many topics that were addressed, very important topics relating to religions and faiths. And we are aware of the fact that when the state of Qatar hosted the World Cup in 2022, it, of course, drew the attention of the entire world to that very specific and major sports event. And everybody was able to see the results of the work we've been achieving in Qatar and on that occasion. And this is also a case of the coexistence that exists between different religions and civilizations. Of course, we need to have this dialogue not just with the other quote unquote, but also between Muslims as well. I supervised a major conference 10 years ago, and it represents a bold dialogue between the Shia and Sunni Muslims, especially that the Almighty says in his book, had the Almighty wanted all believers to believe, then they would have done that. You, as Prophet, cannot coerce people to believe, and therefore the Almighty God wanted this diversity and difference to exist between the people. And we have to live and experience that diversity in a spirit of peace. And the Almighty has created humans to build the earth and to learn to coexist. And the Almighty says if God had willed it, He would have created humanity as one nation, but they would still be different. Therefore, we are different. There is diversity in everything, in our races, in our ethnicity, in our languages, in our appearances, etc. Therefore, I do believe that if we want to have any successful form of dialogue, we have to overcome the obstacles hindering the dialogue, that is failure to respect the other, failure to respect diversity, and also the disdain towards the religious beliefs. And there is also a key element in this respect, and that is faith should not be part of the dialogue, because if we engage in a dialogue regarding faith, then that might lead to clashes. We have to deal with matters relating to social aspects for this coexistence. I would like to quickly say something. We have to keep in mind that we need to respect the different ethnicities. We respect the diversity, and when we talk about diversity, that applies to males and females. So the Almighty has created males and females in all aspects. Almighty God has created plants, animals, and there have always been males and females in His creation. And the male cannot become a female and vice versa. And the Almighty says you should not seek to change what God has created. And that is, in that way, we would have a very realistic approach to life, to the religions, and to the environment around us, including plants and animals. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Madam. Professor Almanai, allow me just to express something that you refer in your speech. It's relevant not just the dialogue interfaith, but inside sometimes the religions themselves, the different faiths. I had this experience that something, for me, it was impossible to understand what happened. Some years ago, when I visited North Ireland in a private visit, and I saw the hate and violence between Catholics and Protestants, both Christians, but they fight. It's impossible to cross people from a Catholic to cross the street where Protestants are living, and the same. Different schools, everything different. So also it's important to have dialogue inside the faith of each one. Otherwise, we will not solve the speech of hate and violence that sometimes separate the human beings. And now it's time to give the floor to our colleague, member of the Knesset of Israel, Mr. Danny Danon. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, our partners in the IPU, gracious hosts in Moroccan Parliament, Shalom, Salam Alaikum. First, if you look back now, you will see the Iranian delegation leaving the hall when I take the podium to speak. This is an example how you do not promote tolerance. This is an example how you do not promote inter-religious dialogue. I think the right thing to do is to hear each other, to speak directly, and to have a real dialogue. Shame on you for leaving the hall. Shame on you for this behavior. I believe the Iranian people deserve a much better and stronger leadership. Mr. President, today I stand before you as a representative of the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel. Israel, a country that embodies diversity and multiculturalism, has been built upon the foundations of religious freedom and coexistence. It is a place where people of different faiths have found refuge and a homeland. Religious tolerance is a fundamental principle that lies at the heart of any democratic society. It is a recognition that each individual has a right to practice their own religion freely, without fear of discrimination or persecution. It is a commitment to embrace diversity and foster an environment where people of all faiths can coexist peacefully, working toward a common goal of building a better future for our nation. We must recognize that religious tolerance is not merely an abstract concept. It is a real experience for millions of Israelis. We must strive to build bridges of understanding and empathy, fostering dialogue and mutual respect among different religious communities. It is important to note that religious tolerance is an ongoing process that requires constant vigilance and commitment. Let us remember that our strength as a nation lies in our ability to embrace our differences and build upon our shared values. Let us be a beacon of hope, showing the world that a society built on religious tolerance is not only possible but necessary for a peaceful and prosperous future. 76 years ago, Israel was just a vision. It was a prayer for millions of Jews worldwide. While there have always been Jews in the land of Israel, many others were in exile, including here in Marrakesh, a beautiful community of more than 200,000 Jews lived in Morocco. Unfortunately, they lived without a home for the Jewish people. Anti-Semitism raised its head in Europe, and the plan to exterminate all Jews was carried out by the Nazis and their collaborators. The Holocaust stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history, where 6 million Jews were systematically persecuted, marginalized, and exterminated during World War II. It is crucial to acknowledge and understand the historical context of the Holocaust. Anti-Semitism, discrimination against Jews, has persisted for centuries. The ultimate goal of the Nazis was the annihilation of world Jewry, a plan known as the final solution. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, the world recognized the need to remember, the need to educate, the need to prevent such atrocities from happening again. This gave rise to the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA. I would like to take this opportunity to call and encourage all parliaments, I encourage all of you to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. If you haven't done it till now, please look into that. In 1948, the State of Israel was established. David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel, stood before a gathering of leaders and proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel and presented the Scroll of Independence. The Scroll of Independence extends an olive branch to the Arab inhabitants of the land, expressing a genuine desire for peaceful coexistence and the establishment of a democratic society that upholds equal rights for all its citizens, regardless of religion, race, or gender. This declaration of statehood marked a significant turning point in the history of the Jewish people. It represented the realization of a dream that had been nurtured for generations. Judaism is not only a religious belief system, but also a way of life that affects every aspect of an individual's existence. Jewish tradition emphasizes the importance of community, family, and social justice. These values are part of Tikkun Olam, that's how we call it in Hebrew, which means repairing the world. Jews are called upon to work towards making the world a better place, promoting justice, compassion, and equality. And those Israel and Israelis try to work toward a better place while blooming the desert by the establishment of the startup nation that we are and by reshaping the Middle East for the better. It started with the peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan, and more recently, with the signing of the Abraham Accords. These historic agreements, signed in 2020, normalized diplomatic relations between Israel and the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. I hope that more countries will join the Abraham Accords soon. The Abraham Accords represent a significant development in the pursuit of interreligious dialogue and peace in the Middle East. The Accords signify a genuine shift in the region, breaking down barriers that had long hindered cooperation and understanding. The Abraham Accords demonstrate that the pursuit of peace and reconciliation can transcend historical and long-standing conflicts. They provide hope for a future where people from diverse backgrounds can live side by side in harmony, respecting each other's religious beliefs and working towards shared goals. Let us embrace the spirit of interreligious dialogue and work together to build a more harmonious and inclusive world for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our best regards to the people of Israel. And now I will give the floor to our colleague, Mrs. Karen Bradley, member of the House of Commons of the UK. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have heard today some incredibly powerful contributions that have given us examples of prejudice on the basis of religion, that prejudice that none of us should be prepared to stand for. We must all work to combat it. And Mr. President, I was very pleased to hear you talk about Northern Ireland. It is a place very, very close to my heart. And it is a true example of where intra-faith dialogue and leadership can actually transform lives in a way that is making Northern Ireland unrecognisable from the place it was 25 years ago. And it's those kind of examples we should all look at. But I want to move our dialogue today on from the discussions about examples of prejudice and onto the practical way that we as politicians and policymakers can work with faith groups and others to deliver our policy aims. The concept note for this general debate says that religion and belief are infused into the fabric of all societies. And it is this infusion that gives us an opportunity, because faith groups can reach into society and into communities in a way that politicians simply can't. The trust that is given to a faith leader by people, by members of the public, by those that elect us to be their political leaders, cannot be understated. And it is those relationships and that trust that gives us opportunities to deliver on policy. And I want to cite 3 examples in a field that I am particularly passionate about, and that is the combating of the hideous crime, the heinous crime of human trafficking and modern slavery. Mr. President, you will know that there are estimated to be 50 million victims of modern slavery around the world. 40 million of those are victims of forced labour. These are people that sew our clothes, that wash our cars, that pick our food. And they are people that are involved with their faith. They are people that attend their churches, their synagogues, their temples, their mosques. They have trust in their faith leaders. And those faith leaders can help us to reach those victims. And I want to give 3 real examples of how this has happened in practice. The first of these is an example from when I was the minister in the United Kingdom with responsibility for the modern slavery work that we carried out there, including taking the Modern Slavery Act 2015 through the UK Parliament. And during that time, Theresa May, who was the then Home Secretary and my boss, worked with faith leaders. She worked with His Holiness, Pope Francis. She worked with the Archbishop of Canterbury. She worked with leaders of law enforcement, so the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Force, for example, was involved. And they set up a group called Santa Marta. And this group included representatives from many countries. Spain was involved, Nigeria was involved, Italy, the United Kingdom. And the work that was carried out was about how to educate faith leaders to be able to recognize the signs of modern slavery, because they would be able to find those people, the people who trusted them in their confessions, in their parish meetings. These were people that we could reach through the church. And it was a fantastically successful group that saw us setting up more and more law enforcement routes to help the victims through the use of the faith-based organisations that reached them. Another example I want to cite is how we worked to try to identify those victims of domestic servitude in the United Kingdom. Domestic servitude is a hideous crime. People forced to sleep on kitchen floors, drink from dog bowls. These are not people who are treated like human beings, but they are able to go to worship. And so we worked with the faith groups, which we knew were the ones that the victims of domestic servitude visited. And it was those faith groups that helped us to find those victims of domestic servitude and make sure that they knew their rights and that we could help them and put them through the processes in the United Kingdom where support was given to victims. My final example is an example of a charity called Arise, which I am very proud to be a trustee of, and my colleague, Lord David Alton, was formerly a trustee of. Arise works with faith groups around the world to help to find potential victims of forced labour and make sure that they have the right documentation and make sure that they are properly represented. An example I will give you is the tea plantations in India. And this is something that the tea company, the tea seller, wanted us to do, wanted Arise to be involved in, because it's in their interest to be able to say that there are no victims of slavery in their tea plantations. So the sisters in the tea plantations are trained by Arise to be able to give full documentation, full right to those workers in the tea plantations. So first of all, the seller of the tea in the United Kingdom can say there is no slavery in our supply chain, but also we know that those people who could be exploited are not being. These, Mr. President, are real examples of how we can work with faith groups. And I would like this dialogue to explore further how we can work across all faiths to reach those victims of crime, those people in despair, those people who need our support. It is the very least that we can do as political leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam, and for your experience on the case of the success of dialogue in North Ireland, the success of the interfaith dialogue in North Ireland. Before I give the floor to the next speaker, allow me to say that we would have welcomed an intervention from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. But unfortunately, due to other commitments, they were not available to attend the conference. Nevertheless, Mr. Salam and Mr. Weiner kindly prepared a video message to present the Faith for Rights initiative on behalf of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. This initiative was born out of the observed divide between religions or beliefs on one hand and human rights on the other hand, two tracks that have often been manipulated against each other. The Faith for Rights framework aims at reconciling and building bridge between religions or beliefs and human rights, between freedom of conscience and international law. It provides a space for a cross-disciplinary reflection and action on the mutuality enriching connections between religions and human rights to work towards more peaceful and inclusive society. We will see the video message from their excellencies. I wait to the video.
Distinguished parliamentarians and IPU colleagues, it's a pleasure for me and my colleague Michael Wiener to meet you online. My name is Ibrahim Salama and I'm responsible for human rights treaties in the United Nations Human Rights Office in Geneva. Michael works in the same office in the minorities section. We're interested very much by the combination in the title of your conference between working together and interfaith dialogue, because this is often the missing link, dialogues and the action that should follow these dialogues. And in the area of relationship between religions and human rights, we found that there is this gap between just mere dialogues and not enough action. And precisely this gap results from the fact that there was no framework that articulates clearly the relationship between religions and human rights, as well as the role and responsibilities of faith actors and religious leaders in the human rights sphere. Both value system, human rights law and faith traditions are historically have historical relationship and contributions to human dignity and equality. But they have been developing in parallel precisely because of the many tensions and also the political manipulations of religions at some opportunities. Now, is secularism the panacea? Is it the baguette magique that would solve our problem, or we need more? From our experience, we need a little bit more than this, and that's why the Faith for Rights framework have been elaborated 6 years ago by a number of quite representative faith actors from different regions and religions and human rights experts from different human rights international mechanisms. And they articulated together a set of soft law norms that aspires to transform religion from a liability into an additional strength to advance human dignity and freedom and the rule of law. Far from denying that there are tensions between religions and human rights, because there are tensions among human rights themselves, nothing is more natural. This framework provides a common narrative and also a methodology of peer-to-peer learning that aspires to transform religion from a problem to a solution and from something to be ignored because of a doctrinal interpretation of secularism into a force in the society to be integrated in a manner that is human rights based. Concrete examples can be given on that. Michael.
Many thanks. And to give you the very concrete example of last year's dialogue series, again in a peer-to-peer learning mode, where we brought together parliamentarians, faith-based actors, academics, and also the co-organizers themselves, I think, are very representative, because it was organized by the Freedom of Religion or Belief Leadership Network, the International Panel of Parliamentarians for Religion or Belief, Religions for Peace, the African Parliamentarians for Human Rights, Faith for Rights Initiative, and the Danish Institute for Human Rights. So you have many stakeholders, and then we focused in these monthly dialogue series on gender, on education, on civic space, on freedom of expression, health, climate change, and so on. And the outcome was really also obviously based on thematic briefing papers, but then also a public statement calling to integrate religious or belief communities' experiences of inequality and the needs into the planning on sustainable development goals, policy and action at the country level. So obviously that no one is left behind. Again, to pick up another point that Ibrahim alluded to in terms of the tensions between freedom of expression and freedom of religion or belief, the Council of Europe Committee of Ministers last May 2022 adopted a recommendation on addressing hate speech, which explicitly refers to the Beirut Declaration on Faithful Rights and also congratulates and suggests using the peer-to-peer learning methodology of the Faithful Rights Toolkit in educational, in standard setting contexts, and that is what obviously may be also of direct interest to you. At the IPU conference in Marrakesh, there will be also the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion or Belief, Nazir Ghaner, and also Dr. Tiago Alves Pinto from the Oxford University, who both have been very much involved in both drafting the Beirut Declaration and also applying the Faithful Rights Toolkit in peer-to-peer learning. So they will be obviously available if you have any direct questions. And Ibrahim and myself would be more than happy to also be in contact should you have any suggestions or questions in the future.
Looking forward to a more interactive forum. We're just scratching the surface of something important for parliamentarians and for us as Human Rights Office. So thank you very much and looking forward to continue this and deepen this discussion. Goodbye.
Thank you. I think we will all wish the success and concrete results for this initiative of the Faithful Rights. And now we come back to our list of speakers. And this way, I will give the floor to our colleague, Mr. Matteo Rossi, member of the Great and General Council of San Marino. You have the floor.
Mr. President, authorities, colleagues, all shall be equal before the law without the distinction based on sex or personal, economic, social, and political and religious status. By reading Article 4 of the Declaration of the Citizens' Rights and Fundamental Principles of San Marino legal system, it is possible to understand San Marino's political philosophy with regard to intercultural and interreligious dialogue. It is considered a fundamental principle of free coexistence in our community, and we believe it should be also for the international community. This is why the Republic of San Marino, backed by its centuries-old tradition of freedom, symbolically embodied in the figure of a saint, has made intercultural and interreligious dialogue a political value to be constantly implemented. Therefore, San Marino has constantly affirmed the value both within and outside its borders. Within its territory, San Marino hosts various religious communities that contribute to increment of social and cultural life, freely expressing their beliefs in constant and mutual dialogue without barriers or obstacles. Outside its borders, the Republic of San Marino seeks to demonstrate its vocation to actively support intercultural and interreligious dialogue. This twofold commitment to dialogue is well represented, among other things, by some examples worthy of mention. The first is the European Conference on the religious dimension of intercultural dialogue held on 23 and 24 April 2007 in San Marino under the auspices of the San Marino chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. The final declaration, San Marino Declaration, represented, according to general consensus, an important milestone in the efforts to promote, foster, and develop intercultural dialogue in Europe, in particular its religious dimension. Get ready in San Marino, representatives of the main bodies of the Council of Europe, the government of the member states, the regulations traditionally present in Europe, and civil society discussed with the assistance of experts, the implication of cultural and religious diversity with the aim of strengthening dialogue and cooperation based on shared values and united by the concept of democracy for all. The second fact I would like to mention is the presence in the historical center of San Marino, small but visited by millions of people every year, of no less than 3 places dedicated to intercultural and interreligious dialogue. There are 3 symbolic places built by will of the current San Marino community to testify to its efforts in concretely affirming the value of dialogue as well as interest in promoting it. These places are, 1, the Cave of Interreligious Prayer, built in 2007 during the San Marino chairmanship of the Council of Europe, to allow people of all countries and religions to stop to meditate and pray. 2, the different equal sculpture of 2008, designed to interpret the value of dialogue between cultures and peoples. 3, the Chapel of Religion, as it was defined by the Al Jazeera Global Network, a unique meeting place for religions, built in 2019. It is housed in the Chapel of St. Anne, a sacred building now dedicated to intercultural and interreligious dialogue, and inaugurated by the highest authorities in the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the Council of Europe. It is therefore no coincidence that the first and only official Shintoist monument in Europe is also located in the Republic of San Marino, the San Marino Jinja. These examples are not an end in themselves. They concretely demonstrate that the promotion of intercultural and interreligious dialogue is one of the priorities of the Republic of San Marino. In this context, religion and the religious facts are fundamental elements of every dimension of free, democratic, and peaceful coexistence. The development of interreligious dialogues as a component of intercultural dialogue is therefore, at all levels, a fundamental contribution to the defense and promotion of the fundamental values on which our peaceful coexistence as human beings is based, beyond diversity. Such diversity can be enhanced precisely to promote the dialogue in which we all believe, which is a founding value of all democratic and therefore peaceful coexistence. It is therefore not an instrument of syncretism, but rather the only effective instrument to prevent the essential threat that always hangs over people's lives for a common future in peace and freedom. Grazie. Thank you. Shukran.
Grazie mille. Now, first I will give the floor to our colleague from Cyprus, from the member of the House of Representatives, Averov Neofato. Please, dear colleague.
Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, today's world is faced with an unprecedented wave of migration, thereby forging interfaith dialogue constitutes a great challenge for the international community. Building strong multicultural societies constitutes at the same time a fundamental component and a goal of successful integration and inclusion policies. Promoting productive dialogue based on mutual understanding and respect is key in this respect. Therefore, It is time we advocate for an even greater and perhaps more radical change in the way we act in politics and beyond, towards achieving robust and resilient pluralistic societies. Dear colleagues, people around the globe are faced with an overwhelming range of challenges: war and conflicts, economic hardship, migratory and social unrest, challenges which, if not effectively addressed, can severely hamper any prospect for strong and healthy intercultural societies and prosperity around the world. It is therefore imperative we reset our goals, policies, and strategies, starting from school students and extending the rest of the population. It is of paramount importance to develop a comprehensive intercultural strategy. Cyprus, my small country, is a multicultural country. Throughout the ages, Cyprus has grown to be a mosaic of different cultures and religions, and diversity has become our great strength. Despite the Turkish invasion and continuing occupation of part of my country since 1974, which affected social cohesion, we Cypriots managed to a great extent to safeguard diversity among people of different backgrounds. I wish to point out that religion was never a problem between the two communities in Cyprus. The Cyprus problem is not a problem between Greek and Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, neither between Christians and Muslims, but an international problem of illegal foreign invasion and occupation. The Constitution stipulates that the Parliament compromise 80 seats, 56 members are elected by the Greek Cypriot community, while 24 remain vacant for Turkish Cypriot Muslims representatives to join once the Cyprus question is solved. Additionally, three religious groups, the Maronites, the Armenians, and the Latins, are allocated one seat each, and in the very recent past, a member of Armenian descent was elected a president of the House. Esteemed colleagues, we must pass from mere declarations to concrete approaches and practical action at the national and international levels. Now is the time to decisively commit ourselves in these processes. Our duty as parliamentarians is to adopt laws and combat racism and xenophobia, but also to promote cultural pluralism and peace through interfaith dialogue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, dear colleague. Agora sim, é tempo de usar o português para chamar o nosso colega Eduardo Molembe, membro da Assembleia Nacional da Assembleia da República de Moçambique.
Ilustre Presidente da União Interparlamentar, Excelência, Senhoras e Senhores, Excelências, estou muito grato por dispor desta oportunidade para tecer algumas palavras em torno do tema que nos é proposto nesta conferência parlamentar sobre o diálogo interreligioso, trabalhando em conjunto para o nosso futuro comum. Agradeço o Reino e o Parlamento de Marrocos e, de modo particular, as entidades de Marrakech pela hospitalidade proporcionada desde a nossa chegada.
I would like to thank the Moroccan authorities and our colleagues, Moroccan colleagues, for their excellent hospitality, and the socio-political stability was affected in recent years with a number of cases of acts of violence against the civilian population that were inspired by religious discourse that has led to persecution and also unjustified extermination of the different populations. And that is in the name of presumable rights. There were attempts to develop a dialogue between different components of society, but the wars and conflicts continued, and individualism and egoism has played a major role and has had an impact on solidarity and the culture of sharing. In different parts of the world, we see terrorist acts, and the perpetrators use religious pretexts and try to hide behind that. The Republic of Mozambique is a secular state, and we separate between the state and religious denominations and affiliations, and we seek to promote fundamental rights that are enshrined in our constitution. The state attaches great importance to the activities of religious communities and seeks to promote understanding, tolerance, and peace, and to strengthen national unity, spiritual and cultural unity, as well as the material well-being of the citizens through socioeconomic developments. In other words, religion in my country is a source for a major source for the maintaining peace and harmony. Interfaith dialogue is timely and relevant. It makes it possible for us to react to the challenges faced in order to build peace, continuous peace in the country. The interfaith dialogue in Mozambique has made it possible for the different faiths to exist and to avoid supremacy, the rush to supremacy. And it is the law and the rule of law that predominates. Mozambique has promoted and hosted a number of forums and conferences that brought together different faiths and religions, and the aim is to promote all things based on faith and interfaith dialogue. And we try through that to promote the standing of the state and as a place for coexistence and tolerance among different people of religious groups, and this contributes to interfaith dialogue in my country. The Ministry of Justice and of Constitutional and Religious Affairs has recorded more than 1,400 religious denominations, 344 religious associations. And these institutions have created or have promoted direct communication with the government, which of course whenever that was necessary, and they invite the leaders of these religious groups to work through the existing channels in order to engage in a reflection, joint reflection regarding situations that might arise. This is the reason why we've been trying to strengthen this platform by laying focus on the human conscience, and we try to strengthen and promote that consciousness. I would like to invite you to look at dialogue not just as a means to reinforce understanding, mutual understanding, but also as a mechanism that serves society as a whole. I am doing this based on based on the words of His Holiness John Paul II, who said that the religion has to be centered around God Almighty, and the first religious duty is the cultural practices, prayer, and thanks to the Almighty. These are mentioned in many faiths, and therefore the opening of one of the chapters of the Quran says, "In the name of God, the gracious, the most gracious, the most merciful." Therefore, in the song inspired by the Bible, we hear the same thing, that is a universal call. Each one who has life in his body glorifies the Almighty through the Hallelujah and the Gospel. And we read the same thing in the other religious texts. And the angels sing also to the Almighty's glory. There are many parties and stakeholders that are trying to lead a life without reference to the Almighty, and the call is to recognize that the center of the universe and that the Almighty is an essential part for all endeavors seeking to ensure the well-being of humanity, end of quote. Therefore, if through divine devotion, if we were to uphold the divine will, then that will help us to address the needs of human beings as members of one family, which is that of the sons of Adam, and we are all the beloved children of God. To conclude, I encourage all the government officials to continue their peaceful activities to promote interfaith dialogue, so that the world of which we're dreaming, a world that is war-free, would be ensured. And I firmly believe that the International Parliamentary Union can become an international platform for the promotion of interfaith dialogue through the members of parliament. Thank you very much, and may the greatest glory go to God the Almighty.
From all the international community to the people and authorities of Mozambique that is suffering terrorist attacks in the Cabo Delgado, killing innocent people that need the general condemnation from everyone. And now I will give the floor to our colleague Ludovic Goga, member of the National Assembly of Slovakia.
Dear Excellencies, distinguished guests,
dear colleagues, attending a conference dealing with a crucial topic such as interfaith dialogue and spreading tolerance regardless of our beliefs is an honor. Let me express my gratitude to the organizers of this conference for covering the pertinent topics. In my short remarks, I will present examples of a cooperation between state authorities and religious communities and faith-based organizations to mobilize society for greater moderation, solidarity, and inclusion. Since the start of Russo-Ukrainian war, millions fled their homes from the horror of war. Many of them sought refuge in the Slovak Republic. The large influx of refugees created serious challenges for the state authorities when thousands and thousands of people were crossing our border every day. They needed shelter, food, help, and human touch, and religious communities and faith-based organizations proved valuable partners to the state authorities in times of need. Churches, charities, and other organizations were at the border from the first days. Their prompt reaction greatly supplemented the effort of the state authorities, and the number of volunteers involved within these organizations helped bear the initial influx of refugees. Their abilities, experience, and network of volunteers were of utmost importance in the first week of the war to shelter refugees, feed them, and provide them with assistance. Churches provided refugees with shelter within their premises and invited their followers to share their vacant premises with people fleeing war. With incentives approved by the Parliament, we were able to manage the situation and accommodate refugees seeking shelter in the Slovak Republic. Charities opened support centers for refugees to foster their integration. Assistance provided within this center covered mainly group therapies, individuals, psychosocial support, and creative and sports workshops. Charities also provided humanitarian aid in the form of food support, hygiene needs, and clothing. Their first-hand experience helped to further improve our legislation to tackle issues arising from this extraordinary situation. However, the partnership with religious communities and faith-based organizations is not limited just to times of crisis. They play a crucial role within marginalized communities and those in need as well. They strive to elevate communities facing poverty, unemployment, lack of education, substandard living conditions, and unfavorable prospects. Preachers and volunteers are involved within the particular community. They are able to gain the trust of the particular community. This proved to be a valuable asset when overcoming distrust between certain marginalized communities and majority of the society. Support, whether institutional, legal, or financial, for religious communities and faith-based organizations involved within marginalized communities plays an important role in the effort to elevate marginalized communities from their disadvantageous position. The insight of the people involved proves to be essential for better understanding the situation of marginalized communities, understanding the roots of the problem, clarifying misconceptions, and thereby resulting in better legislation. Dialogue is not limited just to personal meetings with representative organizations, but also can take the form of conferences dealing with specific topics. Religious communities and faith-based organizations proved to be very effective when gathering resources from their followers in solidarity with those in need. Numerous activities are funded
through offering races raised by members of religious communities. They invite and encourage their followers to share with people in need, not just in Slovakia, but also across the globe. In 2019, we approved legislation that created a system where grocery shops had to donate food after the date of minimum durability, but still safe to eat, to charities free of charge. It increased the volume of food available to charities, as well as aimed to decrease food waste. Religious communities and faith-based organizations proved in various situations to be important partners to the state authorities. Their work is essential, and we, as parliamentarians, should embrace their work and involvement in their numerous activities, as they help to shape our world to a more sustainable and inclusive future. To achieve that, we need to be involved in dialogue with this organization, listen to their experience, and should shape legal and institutional framework that would support the work of this organization. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, dear colleague, also for your strong statement. And now it's time to give the floor to Mrs. Christine Schwarz-Futsch, member of the Federal Council of Austria. Dear colleague, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather here to discuss a topic of utmost importance, one that holds the key to building a better and more inclusive future for all. It is a topic that highlights the power of collaboration between parliaments and religious leaders. I would like to thank the Kingdom of Morocco for the initiative to host this conference on this important topic, together with the Inter-Parliamentary Union here in Marrakesh. Under the theme Parliaments and Religious Leaders Promoting Dialogue, Working Together for Our Common Future, I will address some crucial questions that guide our understanding of this relationship and its potential impact. Firstly, interfaith dialogue plays a very important role in guaranteeing the rule of law and promoting peace and inclusion. In a world characterized by diverse beliefs and ideologies, it is imperative that we foster understanding, tolerance, appreciation, like we heard yesterday, and mutual respect. Through dialogue, we can bridge the gaps that divide us, avoid misunderstandings, and promote a culture of peace. By engaging in conversations and collaborative efforts, parliaments and religious leaders can work together to establish laws that protect the rights of individuals and communities, while ensuring the preservation of their unique identities. Secondly, good practices already exist where parliaments engage with representatives of religions or beliefs and civil society to build more peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. Such initiatives allow for the exchange of ideas, the identification of shared goals, and the development of legislation that reflects the needs of diverse populations. By involving civil society and religious representatives, parliaments can tap into their expertise and mobilize their networks to create a more harmonious and equitable society. Thirdly, parliaments, representatives of religions and beliefs, and civil society face shared challenges to peace, inclusion, and the rule of law at various levels. At the national level, they may encounter issues related to religious discrimination, social exclusion, and the erosion of democratic values. Regionally, they may grapple with conflicts rooted in religious tensions as well as the rise of extremism. There are countries where people are persecuted because of their beliefs. I earnestly request the parliamentarians of these countries to take action to end these persecutions. The various religions and cultures in this world have different customs and traditions. It is important that we respect each other. Please stop the people in your respective countries from killing those who hold different beliefs. Essentially, all religions share the same common values, such as, for example, not killing or not stealing, among many others. Nevertheless, in some countries of this world, people are attacked or killed because of their faith. According to an Aid to the Church in Need report of 2021, religious freedom is violated in almost 1/3 of the world's countries, where 2/3 of the world's population live. The study does not only consider the situation of Christians, but of all religions. I am repeating myself because this is so important to me. The respect for all individuals is crucial. Last year, I was happy to be able to meet with Rabbi Arthur Schneier in New York, who originally comes from my home country, Austria. He emphasized that not only tolerance is important, but above all, respect for other religions and cultures is crucial. Internationally, we face the challenge of fostering global solidarity and cooperation in an increasingly interconnected world. These challenges call for collective action and collaboration, transcending boundaries and working together to overcome the obstacles that hinder progress. I would like to come back to the role of the parliaments. Parliaments can cooperate better with representatives of religions and beliefs and civil society by fostering open and inclusive spaces for dialogue, encouraging the participation of diverse voices in decision-making processes, and ensuring that legislation and policies reflect the values of pluralism and equality. It is crucial to establish mechanisms that facilitate regular communication and coordination between these stakeholders, creating avenues for joint initiatives, capacity building, and resource sharing. By recognizing the common concerns that bind them, parliaments can leverage the moral authority of religious leaders and the grassroots knowledge of civil society to address the challenges we face as a collective. For instance, in Austria, where I come from, Austria is a traditionally religiously open and neutral country. Austria cooperates with religious societies and considers them as an important part of public life. In conclusion, the collaboration between parliaments and religious leaders is indispensable in shaping a future that is rooted in peace, justice, and inclusion. Through interfaith dialogue, we can guarantee the rule of law, promote understanding, and overcome the shared challenges that hinder progress. Let us work hand in hand, recognizing the importance of diversity and embracing the transformative power of cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. dear colleague, for your statement. And now I will give the floor to the member of the National Assembly of Serbia, Mr. Muamer Baševac. Please.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuh ta'ala, and good afternoon. Speaking of religion as a means of reinforcing social norms, the great Montesquieu concludes, where there are grounds for hatred in a state, religion must provide many reasons for reconciliation. The conflicts in the former Yugoslavia are the best proof that religious communities needed to be a barrier to conflicts and wars, just as they should be an engine of reconciliations and cooperation among citizens in times of peace. Serbia is a small but beautiful country, and Serbia is a secular state. In the same time, it is a multi-religious society. We have 37 registered churches and religious communities, 7 of which are traditional with the centuries of historical continuity. This dynamic religious structure represents the strong potential in a process of democratization. Stable relation between the state and the church communities and respect, as well as a mutual dialogue between different religious communities, are certainly prerequisites for political stability and security, and therefore for economic and social development. Believing in the healing power of religion in a society, in Serbia we introduced religion education and a civic education as a 2 optional subjects in the schools just over 20 years ago. The need to foster these values from an early age is perhaps more emphasized today than ever, given all the challenges we are facing. Because deviating from these universal values can lead to conflicts, incidents, violence, and accidents. Unfortunately, last month, Serbia faced with 2 major tragedies that took lives of children and young people, 17 of them. Such events change whole countries and require adequate response from all of us. I believe that as a society, by insisting on these values and by including the religious communities, we will be able to find solutions for this problem. Interfaith dialogue and dialogue between the people's elected representatives and religious leaders represent a step forward towards a better understanding of these problems and finding best solutions for our society. Tragedies like this show us that the dialogue between the people, elected representatives, and the religious leaders are crucial. I think that Member of Parliament can and must be the main bridge to cooperatives between religion communities and politicians. Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleague. And also, I wish to express on the name of IPU, but I believe in the name of all of us, solidarity to the authorities, to the people, and to the families of the victims of these awful events that affect your country. And now it's time to give the floor to our colleague, member of the National Assembly of Vietnam, Tuan Pong Dong. You have the floor, please.
Excellency, Mr. President of IPU, distinguished parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, the world we live in has been experiencing many political and security upheavals, which evolve in a complicated and unpredictable manner. Drastic non-traditional security risks, terrorism, ethnic and religious conflicts continue in many places. This context requires coordination at different levels, including multilateral institutions. Therefore, I welcome the initiative of the IPU and the Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco in organizing this important conference, confirming the determination and joint action to promote dialogue and cooperation for our common future. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam is a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. Each of our 54 ethnic groups has beliefs and religions associated with its economic, cultural, and social conditions. Religious life is diverse and vibrant, with about 95% of the population practicing a belief or religion, and about 9,000 festivals and beliefs and religions each year and across the country. All major religions in the world are practiced in Vietnam. Vietnam's consistent policy is to ensure the right to freedom of belief and religion, to promote solidarity and harmony among religions, and to ensure equality and non-discrimination on religious grounds. The right to freedom of belief and religion is recognized in important legal documents of Vietnam, including the Constitution and the 2016 Law on Belief and Religion. On that basis, we have achieved important outcomes in ensuring and promoting human rights in general, the right to freedom and belief and religion in particular. Particularly, firstly, diversity, harmony, and equality among religions is guaranteed. All religions make certain contributions in many aspects of social life. Interfaith followers exist together. No religion plays a dominant role. All religions are equal to the law. Religious organizations are also very active in education, healthcare, social protection, charity, humanitarian activities, and during high times of the COVID-19 pandemic. 2, religious activities are increasingly active in our country. The state has made efforts to ensure and provide favorable conditions for religious gatherings and activities to take place normally. Especially important religious holidays are held on a large scale with the participation of a large number of followers, and many religious holidays have become community ones. Number 3, religious organizations and individuals are facilitated to expand their international relations. Many major international religious activities have been solemnly and successfully organized in Vietnam, have been appreciated by the international community, such as the United Nations commemoration of Vesak, which has been held in Vietnam 3 times, or the celebration of the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Assembly of Vietnam for the current term has 5 deputies who are religious dignitaries. The fact that they are from different religions and participate in the elections and being elected as deputies demonstrates a fair and democratic process of election, showcases the prestige of the candidates and the confidence of the people and religious followers. The deputies, who are religious dignitaries, bring the voices of the people and followers to different forums of our National Assembly, including legislative activities. The peaceful and tolerant coexistence between religions, added with the benevolence and humanity of the Vietnamese people and society, have created a vivid picture of belief and religions in Vietnam, pure but diverse, intertwined but not contradictory. Especially in the current period, the positive and constructive relations between religions and the state have been clearly demonstrated and increasingly strengthened. Ladies and gentlemen, taking advantage of this conference, I would like to inform all delegates that this September, the National Assembly of Vietnam will host the 9th IPU Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians with the theme, the role of the youth in promoting the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals via digital transformation and innovation, a topic that has drawn the concern of many countries around the world. We look forward to welcoming parliamentarian delegations in Vietnam, and we hope you will have a chance to learn about religions and religious freedom in Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your statement and for the commitment of the National Assembly of Vietnam to organize and to host the Forum of Young Parliamentarians that will happen next September. And I will say, I believe that many of us, we regret because we don't have the age to be present and benefit from the hospitality of your people and your parliament. But good luck for all members of young parliamentarians that will assist and participate in your conference. Thank you. And now I will give the floor to the member of the Islamic Parliament of Iran, our colleague Mojtaba Reza Khan. Please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. First of all, I would like to thank the Kingdom of Morocco for organizing this conference and their warm hospitality. Humanity needs peace today more than ever before. In recent years, we have progressed in various sciences at a rapid pace, yet our morals and ability to coexist peacefully have often been on the decline. One of the most important factors that make discussion and finding solutions for spreading peace nearly impossible is the widespread misinformation regarding the main sources of violence. For today, what has caused the death and displacement of millions across the world is not isolated acts of terrorism committed by a limited number of extremists, but rather the warmongering policies of some of the world's biggest military powers. It's due to such policies that the lives of millions of people have been destroyed in countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Palestine. Yet, we fail to focus on and find solutions for this issue, since those fundings, these wars, are also controlling mainstream media. Instead, the discussion often revolves around stopping fanatics who feign religious devotion and claim that their crimes stem from religious principles. Does the Jewish faith, for instance, dictate the Palestinian homes be destroyed for building illegal settlements, or Palestinian children as young as 9 years of age be shot or tortured or placed in prison? People who are not educated about the true principles of divine religion, of Judaism, are likely to fall for this false depiction of its followers. They might mistake Zionism for Judaism and develop a dangerous sense of hate towards our faithful Jewish brothers. Especially since mainstream media has intentionally refrained from covering the struggles of Arab and Palestinian Jews and others against Zionism. This is one of the major problems with the false portrayal of the main sources of violence. It directs undeserved hate towards the peaceful followers of divine religions worldwide. Another problem with introducing religious fanaticism as the main source of violence in the world is that the extremists are often trained and equipped by the same military powers who profit from waging wars. The political ideology of Zionism, for instance, would have never been able to kill and displace hundreds of thousands of Palestinians had it not been for the abundant support of the American military-industrial complex or the US's undeserved veto right, a right that has been used time and time again to veto resolution against the illegal and inhuman actions of this criminal Zionist entity. Meanwhile, we have failed to realize that the same world religions that are falsely depicted as the sources of violence can in fact serve as our greatest allies in the promotion of peace, with the exception of those who fell prey to the likes of colonial strategies such as divide and conquer. The followers of divine religions have been living together peacefully for centuries across the world, such as Jewish, Christians, and Muslim Arabs who used to live together peacefully in Palestine before Western colonial strategies destroyed peace in their land. Therefore, we at the Islamic Republic of Iran, and home to followers of divine religions such as Zoroastrianism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, believe in the important role of religious leadership in promoting peace. Religious leaders often have credibility as guides of trusted institutions, and through educating people about the core values of divine religions followed by millions across the world. Religious leaders can promote love and understanding, which can encourage people to decline calls for violence. Through the promotion of spirituality, religious leaders can offer people a deep-seated and effective base for examining and modifying their own behavior. They can also help provide a sense of identity through offering people a respected set of values. They are able to unite nations around these values and mobilize communities to pursue common goals. Also, they often have a sense of calling which can inspire people to have patience and persevere in the face of conflict. And if we allow them to, through preaching divine teachings, religious leaders can create a sense of identity and purpose so true and strong that can veto the warmongering policies of world powers in a way no international organization has ever been able to. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, colleague Reza Khan. And dear colleagues, because I needed to go to bilateral meetings, I'm sorry, it is not possible to continue here in this room for now. And so it's my honor to invite Madame Mokitimi, Speaker of the Senate of Lesotho, to share the meeting. Madame, please, it's an honor for me.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is from Palestine, and he's already here. He will give us his presentation.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me first and foremost to thank Morocco for the hospitality and the appropriate organization of this Congress, and also the warm reception. I'd like to laud highly the message of His Majesty the King that was comprehensive and a source of inspiration for this conference that brings together the men of faith, politicians and parliament, which is quite an important opportunity for us in order to draft, reconsider quite a lot of issues that are of importance to humanity through the development of a strategy, particularly involving the religious people, parliamentarians and politicians, and fighting against terrorism and also hatred, particularly that has resulted only in creating havoc and a problem for our communities that have paid quite a lot of casualties, more particularly due to these preachings that are not appropriate, particularly that do not dovetail with what really our books, holy books, say. There are lofty values, particularly to consolidate the humanity of human beings and to organize the relationship holding between the human being and his God, and which is quite an important behavioral referential, particularly pertaining to how people treat their kind, particularly on an equal footing treatment regardless of the race or color or ethnic affiliation, and what the world is witnessing in terms of crises under various appellations and labels, and all those crises really, they have no relationship with the values of religion. We need a holding whereby to really, and so particularly there is we need particularly the perpetrators of such things really try to manufacture an enemy, particularly so that they can guarantee their and preserve their positions, and so that they can market their really bad ideas, and so it becomes like a really straw that can be devoured by heat, by fire. Palestine, throughout history, was the cradle of quite many religions and civilizations of the world. This is the reason why Palestine has always been really distinguished, particularly in cohabitation of the people, and particularly from the three ethnic creeds. But since 1948, and for the last 75 years, we really are under occupation by Israel. Particularly, Israel is turning its back, more particularly to the international laws and to the principles underpinning humanitarian law, and it goes against the laws of religious laws, particularly through really transgressing the rights of people. Particularly, the killing takes place on a daily basis, and Israel is working to restrict the religious freedom of the Christians and Muslims in the area, and banning them from going to the places of worship in Jerusalem and Al-Quds, and also it's violating these aggressing them and aggressing people of faith during their prayers, and right in front of everybody, violations of human rights. So achieving peace in the Middle East requires looking at the root causes, and through negotiations and through dialogues, particularly a concrete dialogue. What we see today is that Israel is seeking whimsical achievements to establish peace when it is still occupying our land in Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are hopeful that this Congress will really be successful in achieving peace and justice and giving the rights, legitimate rights, to the Palestinian people that is under occupation of Israel. Then Israel is trying to really empty the land of Palestine from its authentic and original people. Particularly, there is need for really negotiations around the table, particularly in the Middle East, on the basis of the values, the lofty values for which we are congregating and meeting in this quite important Congress that brings together eminent people. And this way, if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, then we'll lose this opportunity, particularly so that we can really spare the lives and also preserve human beings and giving a possibility to the future generations so that they can live in communities that are just, fair, and away from hatred. Ladies and gentlemen, the time of slavery has ended a long time ago, and we need to confront and to anyone who really tries to deprive us of our freedom. Freedom is something that is not negotiable, and we will continue to remind you that there are still people in Palestine whose hands are really ready to engage in peace, and history will really not will not pardon those who ignore this call for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Palestine, for your input. We will have the next speaker from the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, Mr. Petro Rogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Excellencies, dear colleagues, brothers and sisters, dear friends. It is a great honor for me to have the opportunity to represent PAM today at this invaluable gathering enabling dialogue and sharing in my capacity of President Emeritus and President of the Third Standing Committee on Dialogue Among Civilizations and Human Rights. At the outset, I wanted to say one word to share our grief for the victims of the Jewish festival on the island of Djerba, Tunisia, last month. This traditional religious festival brings men of faith, men of peace, and scholars from around the world. The attack against pilgrims who gather in peace was simply shocking. As we all see, there are still so many valid reasons to gather and to talk about peace. Cultivating long-lasting peace and fostering inclusive and sustainable prosperity are the main objectives of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. By building bridges between countries, communities, and individuals, parliamentary diplomacy plays a crucial role. It nurtures a pluralistic dialogue, strengthens cooperation, and promotes mutual understanding. Last year, a PAM delegation came to Morocco and met with Mr. Habadi. We exchanged particularly on youth and how youth can be a vector towards peace in deeply engaged in their communities. We wholeheartedly support this call. Next month, PAM will be in Greece to engage in talks with the leaders of Orthodoxy. Here in Morocco and earlier in Italy, PAM organized a number of specialized meetings on the responsibility of political and religious leaders in countering violent extremism and radicalization. The results were interesting, but the commitment of our institutions cannot be limited to a conference. Our actions must continue over the time and involve regularly civil society and institutions. Our visit to the School of Ulema was very instructive, and I wish to congratulate Morocco for this program. Dear colleagues and friends, as we look around the world today, we are certainly living through very hard times. The Euro-Mediterranean and Gulf region today knows growing tensions, resurgence of violence in the Middle East, the Russian aggression against Ukraine, the violent clashes in Sudan, and insecurity in the Sahel region. Wars do not bring just solutions. They only create misery, and that grows wider in our globalized world. We are faced with a climate crisis that spares no one. The Mediterranean is extremely vulnerable to climate change, as evidenced by the dramatic droughts and floods that recently hit southern Europe, including Italy and my country, Portugal. We will be present at the COP28 to keep our governments accountable. These multiple shocks will induce more mass migration. Each one of our countries is affected as a country of origin, transit, or destination. PAM continues to promote a safe, orderly, and regular migration and monitor the implementations of the Global Compact, which has been adopted as one of the most intergovernmental conferences on recent times here in Morocco and this same city a few years ago. Dear colleagues, 2023 also marks the 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We will continue to work every day, everywhere, building bridges and promoting more equitable and cohesive societies. Building peaceful and resilient society is, above all, a matter of social inclusion, and this certainly passes through political representation. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, let me state that you can count on the Parliamentary Assembly of Mediterranean to play its role as a peace-seeking and peace-nurturing regional institution. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much. I can see Chad is close by. The next speaker will be the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Chad, Mr. Maki Mohamed Saleh. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Chair, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to take the floor before this August Assembly to share with you some thoughts about the role that interfaith dialogue can play in order to respect the rule of law as well as inclusion and peace. Interfaith dialogue for us is the result of positive interaction between people of different faiths. This can be done through exchanges and daily life practices that is for the well-being of all. Chad, my country, which is a vast country at the heart of Africa, has borders with Arab Muslim countries and African countries. It is a very rich, culturally diversified country and it has Muslim, Christian, as well as secular ethnicities with Arab and African and Muslim components of the population. Our country has a multi-faceted culture, and it believes firmly in peace despite the strife and conflicts that might arise in there. And that is thanks to the cooperation between different religious leaders. We developed a revised charter for the country, a charter that takes into consideration tolerance and inclusion as basic principles for coexistence, peaceful coexistence, and inclusive societies and communities. Even our parliament has ratified a number of international covenants on the fight against fanaticism and the respect of mutual respect and understanding. The penal code adopted in the country, adopted in 2017, includes sanctions against intolerant practices and exclusion. Beyond the prohibition and forbidding of intolerance, Chad insists on the role of interfaith dialogue, on awareness raising for the population, and the development and promotion of constructive modes of living for the different communities based on tolerance and respect for human rights. It also encouraged the creation of advocacy platforms for faith groups and in order to work with these faith groups. Parliament is also involved through Decree 1314 of 17 November 2011. The day of 28 November of each year is celebrated as a day of prayer, interfaith prayer. This prayer is conducted in the presence of officials and parliamentarians, as well as representatives of different faith groups, in order to promote peace, prevent religion-inspired strife and conflict. By acting this way, the Republic of Chad hopes to continue to contribute to the promoting the role of religion, and also to the development of a more tolerant, more inclusive world in which each component of society can live, that is, in mutual understanding with others. The role is also to promote the work of parliamentarians in conjunction with the representatives of civil society in order to build a society that is more inclusive and more tolerant. The challenges facing peace and inclusion, as well as respect for human rights, which are facing parliamentarians and religious leaders and civil society organizations, mean that society in general and the international community have to work together to address these challenges and to fight prejudice which impede the emergence of peaceful societies, promote love and forgiveness. These are values that are enshrined in the different faiths, and the aim also is to promote closer ties between religious leaders, as well as respect for the respective religious values. We should also work to invite the representatives of different faiths to promote positive and constructive practices, and to also engage in a dialogue with government and representatives of civil society for the promotion of the Republican values. Contribute also to promoting a culture rooted in peace and coexistence, and work for the well-being of the population and development. Parliamentarians can cooperate in a better way with representatives of the different faiths and civil society to answer the concerns of both groups and to especially that religion and politics have always been intertwined. They both try to promote the living together and promote nonviolence. Before concluding, I would like to point out that the efforts made to promote interfaith dialogue and the promotion of the rule of states, the rule of law in countries, and the emergence of a more inclusive societies represents a broad answer to the challenges faced by the parliamentarians and religious leaders, and also to answer the concerns of the peoples as they are expressed. We wish to hail the initiative of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco and the religious organizations and the Alliance of Civilizations of the United Nations and the Muhammadiyya Rabita in the Kingdom of Morocco, who had this brilliant idea of inviting us to this conference to look for overall solutions. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of Chad. Our next speaker is Mr. Seni Kamara, a member of the Transitional National Assembly of Guinea. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la.
Thanks very much indeed, Madam Chairperson. Thanks very much indeed, honorable speakers of parliamentary institutions, ladies and gentlemen, the parliamentarians, the honorable heads of delegations, dear parliamentarian colleagues. I'm honored to be present here on behalf of the National Council of Transition for the Guinea Republic in this very important conference, parliamentarian conference on interfaith dialogue for building a joint and common future organized and convened by the Parliament of Morocco and UIP. While thanking you for the quality of the presentations and for the appropriate organization of the Congress and conference, I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity to convey the greetings and all the consideration of His Excellency, Honorable Dr. Vansa Kuma, President of the National Council of Transition of the Republic of Guinea, whom my delegation represent here in this very august conference and congregation. This meeting is a platform for exchange devoted to the deliberations on crucial questions and core concerns in terms of inclusions and coexistence in particular. And so the religious element is quite an important of the mandate that consists to promote peace for ensuring political dialogue, cohabitation involving parliamentarians and the religions and players acting at the civil society organization. This is a platform that gives a voice to countries such as my country that has developed a long and rich experience, in particular in religious cohabitation, to advocate for a world marked by peace. Inclusion, religious tolerance are undeniable segments of this. The parliamentary system of the religious faith to promote dialogue in particular and to collaborate for our common destiny is a fact adapted to the relevant experience of my country. There is a research of a field of a fertile ground to promote collaboration between the various creeds and other cultures. I'd like to recall in this regard that even the religious centers are quite many. Our mission is clear, putting in place a mechanism of a efficient mechanism based on resources and based on relevant experiences that are unprecedented. Taking advantage from taking advantage of the IT to work together to solve the problems that we are grappling with and that threaten the survival of humanity and are hindering growth, particularly, and reducing inequalities and also reducing poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, it's for the first, we need to bring parliamentarians and men of faith and to promote policies and voluntary-based policies for ensuring a dialogue and cohabitation and faith, to create bridges for ensuring dialogue for the joint missions carried out by parliamentarian and men of faith to enhance the awareness of the grassroots population on the values, the lofty values of the things that we have in common and which brings us together for a better, for building a better world, an inclusive world, a fairer world for whereby human rights are upheld and protected, and to create a watch committee in order to really fight against speeches of hatred and fanaticism and fundamentalism. So we need to stand against really intolerance, so we need to make of these social practices that maintain the equilibrium and the balance through appropriate education and through the provision of training. There are good practices in my country, in the Republic of Guinea, good practices in the in the General Assembly we start with prayers by religious people from different Christian and Islamic creeds, and so particularly there is interaction in our General Assembly, particularly which contributes necessarily to promote the environment whereby understanding prevails and which has a considerable impact on the community. If it's up to the MPs to vote laws of conduct and to ensure the harmony between the religions, the men of faith need to invest in education and convey and transmitting values of coexistence and the acceptance of the other and respect for the other. And so building... Gentlemen is stopping at this very level. Building bridges and banning the walls of really injustice. Our religious and men of faith are the best course and vehicle and vector that will help us organize and promote education based on universal values. So we need all to act to find the appropriate solutions, more practical solutions in order to prevent I wish you full success. I'd like to thank you, Madam. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kamara. The next speaker is a member of the National Assembly of South Africa, Ntate Madala David Ntombela.
Madam Speaker, Your Excellency, honorable parliamentarians, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, interfaith dialogue as a catalyst of working together for our common future is a critical starting block to chart a way forward for mankind. It is therefore essential to include religious actors on diplomatic efforts. Interfaith dialogue is a glue that brings people of different religious faiths together on a round table conversation, or even a conversation under a tree, or at various social levels. The 2017 St. Petersburg Declaration on promoting cultural pluralism and peace through interfaith and inter-ethnic dialogue recognizes that dialogue with faith, cultures, and ethnicities is essential to peace and cultural pluralism. How do we view this cultural phenomenon? At the advent of the democratic dispensation, the essence of the nation's understanding of this cultural heritage is captured in the title of the statement, "I am an African," made by the Deputy President Mbeki to the Constitutional Assembly of South Africa. This set the tone and laid the basis for a non-racial understanding and appreciation of the nation's diverse heritage. South Africa has been famously referred to as the Rainbow Nation because it's made up of many diverse cultures and religions. Contained within the South African borders are the Zulus, Xhosas, Sotho, Bapedi, Botswana, Ndebele, Khoisan, Hindu, Muslim, and Afrikaner people, to name but a few. All of these people are united by calling South Africa home, and therefore their lives all contribute to forming a part of the country's heritage, identity, and culture. Understanding that South Africa is composed of all these influences is essential to make communities respect each other in their religious diversity. The advent of the South African Charter of Religious Rights and Freedoms is a demonstration of this point. The Charter is a religious legal document that defines the freedoms, the rights, responsibilities, and the relationships between the state and its citizens concerning religious beliefs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Our next speaker is the Indian ambassador to UNESCO, Mr. Vishal Sharma Kanod. Yes. Kanod.
Excellencies, my sister from Lesotho, brothers and sisters, Namaste, Salam Alaikum, and Sat Sri Akal, which means truth is timeless. I stand before you today as a humble representative of my ancient mother India. India, that is Bharat, is the land of philosophy, of rich cultural and religious diversity. the language of 1,900 languages, and of Ayurveda and yoga. She is home to 1.4 billion people, including over 200 million Muslims. She is the mother of democracy. I invite you all to come to India with your friends and family at least once in your life. Dear friends, under His Majesty King Mohammed VI's visionary leadership, Morocco has demonstrated a strong commitment to promoting interfaith dialogue, working together for our common future, which is similar to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future, the theme of the Indian presidency of the G20. It holds great significance for the entire world. As human societies evolved, so did their systems of governance. It was the separation of church and state that has given rise to the modern secular democracies. Has the time come for parliaments to evolve systems of tolerance that help humanity rise above the cleavages that divide it and focus on aspirations towards a unity offered by our common future by providing efficient governance? In India, we have a concept of Ram Rajya, or the rule of Lord Rama. The proverbial Ram Rajya is not the advocation of a theocratic monarchy, but instead, the cohesive definition of Ram Rajya is good governance. The objective of any government or parliament is to deliver good governance so that it benefits the poorest of the poor, irrespective of religion. India is the land of more than 625,000 villages. The government of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi has built 116 million toilets for the poor of the rural villages, primarily to give dignity to rural women. It has launched Ayushman Bharat, the largest health insurance scheme to cover 500 million poor people, and cooking gas connections to over 92 million households, impacting a population of 400 million. Service to the poor does not differentiate on basis of religion. Service is secular, just as the pain of hunger or the sadness of a broken heart also does not differentiate. The hand that serves is higher than the deed that hurts. Can parliaments inculcate a service attitude among parliamentarians and encourage educational systems to bring programs wherein the youth are groomed with a positive attitude towards nishkam karma, or selfless service? Can parliaments become a source of inspiration for the youth to usher in the politics of service, the politics of hope, and reject the colonial politics of divide and rule? Can debates in parliaments aim towards the higher ideal of inclusion? At the United Nations High-Level Forum on the Culture of Peace, Prime Minister Modi summarized India's contribution to global peace and harmony, that India's gift to the world is not war, but the wisdom of Lord Buddha and his message of peace. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated India's new parliament on 28 May 23, wherein the ancient Sanskrit texts of India were recited along with verses from the Torah, the Bible, and Surah Al-Rahman from the Quran, to seek the blessings of all religions for the 1.4 billion children of Mother India. Prime Minister Modi's call of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas means social cohesion results in collective growth towards a common future. Excellencies, I remember seeing a video wherein His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE, discloses that his father, Sheikh Zayed, may peace be upon him, sent him away as a young man to North Africa. I'll just conclude in 30 seconds. To experience the hardships of life. On his return, his father asked him, what had he learned? Sheikh Mohammed replied that he had learned that he must help the poor. Sheikh Zayed asked him to explain further, and the son replied, we must help because they are Muslims, to which Sheikh Zayed immediately said, no. We are all children of Allah regardless of religion, and we must help without discrimination. This was a beautiful message of social cohesion that a father imparted to his son. Religion in this way can be used as a tool to join hearts. Thank you, Excellencies.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Our next speaker is Ms. Monica Bartos, a member of the National Assembly of Hungary.
Dear Madam Speaker, my dear fellow representatives, ladies and gentlemen, religion plays an important role in our lives, be it nations, communities, or individuals. Our identity is greatly influenced by the culture in which we grew up, and culture is greatly influenced by religion. For example, Hungary's historical experience is that Christianity has a nation-preserving role. Our first king founded the country more than 1,000 years ago, a Christian country. He was colonized by Pope Gregory VII in 1083. During the centuries that has passed since then, Hungarians has often asked for God's protection and blessings. That is why Pope Francis was able to call Budapest the city of history, bridges and saints during his visit to Hungary. People also often look for answers to the more important questions of their lives in religion. It shows direction and provides a secure foundation of our lives. Believers are connected to God both institutionally and personally. Non-believers perceive the influence of religion through culture, traditions, and holidays. This is also why it is important what kind of relationship the decision makers and the government have with the churches. In Hungary, churches are independent, receive state support, and are entitled to constitutional protection. But the relationship between the state and the churches points further than this when it comes to service provided to society and activities carried out for the public good. Let me explain this through the example of the Humanitarian and Development Assistance Program you may be familiar with, the Hungary Health Program. In those countries where the Hungarian state is suggested to support humanitarian and development programs, the state bodies contact the church actors directly. Direct cooperation with churches is one of the pillars of the Hungarian model and the basis of its effectiveness. The reason for building direct relationship is that the churches are present in the communities with historical examples, relevant practice, and long-term responsibilities. It can also be relied on in relation to the preservation and protection of cultural heritage, since most cultural heritage is of a religious nature or is under the management of churches. Hungarian assistance, development programs, and the protection of cultural heritage are also tools of interreligious dialogue, because the service provided by one church usually also benefit members of other religions in the community. Finally, allow me to share one more thought and experience with you, which is also my personal experience. There is a prayer group in the Hungarian Parliament, of which I am also a member. The community that transcends denominations and parties is a special place of mutual attention and dialogue. We pray together for peace, and for this peace to be born first and foremost in hearts of people. We also host church leaders and people active in civil life to learn from them. I came here primarily to study also, and I thank my fellow representatives and specialists for their thoughts and suggestions. I wish you many blessings and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ma'am. Our next speaker is Mr. Paulino Lukudo from South Sudan.
Right Honorable Speaker of the Senate of Lesotho, honorable members of the Parliament, honorable delegates, and media. I am, on behalf of the people and the government of the Republic of South Sudan, very glad to the Kingdom of Morocco for the hospitality and hosting these important occasions here today. The Republic of South Sudan is one of the East African countries and the only country in East Africa that speaks Arabic and also speaks English. Republic of South Sudan is bordering Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Congo, and is also one of the countries recently visited by Pope Francis, and the last country, I think, in Africa that Pope Francis visited. On behalf of the delegation from the Republic of South Sudan, I want to assure the gathering that the Republic of South Sudan is promoting interfaith and peaceful coexistence among the people of the Republic of South Sudan. The Republic of South Sudan constitutionalized the freedom of worship in the Constitution, Part 2, Article 23, which gives freedom for the different religions, because we are multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious state. The Republic of South Sudan as well promote interfaith through so many engagements, which includes religious conference, National Day for Prayers, and as well before the formation of the transitional government that we have now, there was also a presidential advisor on religious affairs. There is a peaceful coexistence between different religious actors in the Republic of South Sudan, which is, in its unique sense, when you visit one of the families or homes in South Sudan, you will find in the same family, there are Christians and there are Muslims living together. You will find a church and a mosque all together in one area. And there is a beauty of cultural diversity, religious coexistence, peace, and tolerance. Religion discrimination is not a problem that can be tolerated. All of us, as the citizens of the world, should ensure that there is peaceful coexistence between the different religions. And we will coexist together by ensuring that we work together as the governments and the citizens of the world to ensure religion is not used as a weapon to discriminate people or as a weapon for political exclusion of other people. We, as a people and the government of the Republic of South Sudan, will continue to promote and remain committed to ensure all of us work vividly, continuously to deepen the peace and stability in our country, in the region, and in the world. And as the Parliament, we are so much cognizant of our work and exercise our duties as parliamentarians to ensure that there is a proper representation and proper legislation of laws that uphold and upright and uplift human rights and peaceful coexistence, and as well do continuous oversight role to ensure the laws and the legislations that was enshrined and passed by the Parliament is respected in various institutions of the government and as well at the grassroots level to ensure we continue doing the civic engagement and civic education of how important is the multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-diversity of our people and how we will continue to build a tolerant society. In conclusion, from the given example, it is very clear that South Sudan has a best practices that the world can benefit from in terms of interreligious coexistence. Our country, South Sudan, has never recorded any history of religious discrimination since our independence. This clearly stated that our people are peace-loving, welcoming, and coexist together as the citizens of the country, and as well work together without putting impediments in terms of using culture or religion to discriminate or to torture people that are not from the same religion. And in conclusion, with the beauty of the culture and the beauty of religious coexistence that we have in the country, we will also extend our invitations to the citizens of the world to come and visit South Sudan as a government or as citizens, so that you explore the beauty of Africa through the beauty of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lukuro. The next speaker is Mr. Brian Collas, a member of the House of Representatives of Malta. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. The dialogue on interreligious faith is not and cannot be a one-off dialogue. In the same way that humans need to eat and drink every day, likewise, the dialogue on interreligious faith needs to continuously nurture and be nurtured every day. It is in this sense that Malta welcomes Morocco's proposal for a permanent standing committee of interfaith dialogue. What has been achieved here in Marrakesh will serve as the foundations for future dialogue. And here I would like to commend Morocco's long-standing history in its contribution in this subject of tolerance and peace. Dear colleagues, politicians, and religious leaders, we have had enough over the years of religious wars. We have seen throughout the centuries religion being used as a pretext for war. This has been stated in Tuesday's opening session by two individuals who know what this really means. Hila Yoon, the Afghan peace builder, whose mother was shot dead. But this was also reminded to us by Ildefonso Nyokindi, who also lost his mother at 3 years of age. Both Hila and Ildefonso had a choice to make in their lives. They could either select revenge or hatred to those who brought them so much pain and fear, or they could believe that good always prevails. If not today, tomorrow. But good always prevails, and we need to make sure that it will continue to always prevail. Both Hila and Ildefonso made the right choice. They chose a future of hope, peace, stability, tolerance over revenge and hatred. They represent the future, the right future that we want for our children. In today's day and age, as politicians and religious leaders, we are influenced and we are influencers. And we must never forget the impact that our words have on our societies. Populist discourse for short-term political gains is oftentimes a source of discontent and division amongst different sections in our societies. This meeting in Morocco has provided the opportunities for politicians and religious leaders to learn from each other. But more importantly, it has confirmed that whilst we may practice different religions, what unites all our religions and all our nations are our shared common values, which we must protect in the name of tolerance, peace, and the right to freedom of religion. I wish you many blessings. Shukran. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker for the day is Mr. Mohammed Alam Azadar. He's the Deputy Speaker of the House of Elders in Afghanistan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السيد الرئيس سادات وأعزائي البرلمانات
Good afternoon. On behalf of the delegation of Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan, I would like to extend my sincere greetings to all of you and to express our gratitude to the sister nation, the Kingdom of Morocco. What the delegations, parliamentary delegations are arriving at in this conference can be used to promote joint action in order to further our efforts for coexistence between the different communities, and this can be done only through the promotion of a culture that is rooted in tolerance and pluralism. They have to be based on the values we have in common in order to promote peace. The problem, strife, and bloodletting is contrary to the very nature of humans. Distinguished participants, the parliamentary delegation from Afghanistan wishes to draw your attention to the fact that Afghanistan is occupied by a group of people that do not believe in tolerance, and they want to exploit and rule the country against its will. Since they have taken the control of the city, they have been of the country. They have been ruling without the consent of the people, whereas the consent of the population is a key element for the sovereignty. And there are 17 ministers in their cabinet are seen as terrorists, and they are being sought. And the Taliban have prevented women and girls from seeking education and from working. And they think that this is based, or they pretend that this is based in the Islamic religion, whereas can you see, for example, that women, for example, in Morocco are forbidden from working, whereas Morocco is also a Muslim state. Do you see any country in the world that prevents women and girls from enjoying their rights and claiming that this is in pursuance of Muslim ordinances? The people of Afghanistan are hijacked by a group of people who have no legitimacy and who do not believe in any of the human values and principles, and a group that does not commit to these values. And therefore, I call on you to read the report of the Security Council of the United Nations, which was published recently on the policy of Taliban, and also on 5th of June, it addressed the war crimes that were committed by the Taliban fighters. Dear brothers and sisters, we are not asking you to support us militarily. We are asking you to be our voice, that is, as far as the ordeal faced by Afghanistan and its people is concerned, because of the actions of Taliban. People in Afghanistan feel that what happened in Afghanistan in 2 years ago can happen in other countries as well. That is, if a group of terrorists and bloodthirsty terrorists take over and control a state, that is, and all it takes is a few hours. This shows that we need to work together and work immediately against terrorism. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. You were supposed to have taken 3 minutes. Thank you anyway. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, that was the last speaker, but we still have the last speaker, but it will be in a form of a video from His Excellency Sheikh bin Bayar, the President of the Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace. It is a short video that we ask that you please listen to. Be patient. We are finishing.
Of Allah, most merciful, most gracious. Peace and blessing be on our Prophet, his kith and kin. I think there is translation on the screen, English. Distinguished attendees, dear man of faith, dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and the blessing of Allah be on you and your family. Allow me to take this opportunity to extend sincere and heartfelt thanks for those behind the convening of this important conference and for the invitation to take part in this important event. Thanks are extended to the Kingdom of Morocco for the patronage, more particularly of the deliberation of this Congress in the city of Marrakesh. That is a historic city. But then how can we protect men and women? How can we consolidate peace and cohabitation? How can we establish the lofty values and implement them? How can we inject fresh blood into the value of these values? We need to start from scratch. Particularly, we need to do away with the wars particularly we need to do with the root causes of the war. And this is what is being done by the Emirates. Particularly, the Emirates is a model for cohabitation and coexistence, particularly of various people from different creeds and nationalities. And then the Emirates was behind quite many initiatives. Dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, the humanity is facing quite a number of challenges, particularly due to the wars, poverty, famine, quite many hurdles standing in the way of humanity. But then we are called upon to work hand in hand, particularly in order to collaborate, involving the parliamentarians and the men of faith, particularly the men of faith do not have armies, do not have but then they have the right word, the right religious world. And then these men of faith are a good tree that can provide quite a lot of fruit. And then they are endowed with reason and they are endowed with the morality. Particularly, MPs also behave in the same way, particularly then This is the goal that we are pursuing, to establish peace and stability in the world. Your conference, ladies and gentlemen, is a linchpin, quite important, working for the development of humanity. And then we hope that our collective efforts will find a way to implementation. And then the general call, particularly targeting the community of goodwill, really need to be involved to work for the humanity. We wish you a path full of success, and peace and blessing of God be on you. Madam Chairperson, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful audience, for your patience. Before I make the last announcement for the day, I wish to make a few comments. First, I wish to thank the IPU and the Parliament of Morocco and congratulate them once again to have organized this kind of dialogue. From the debates made both yesterday and this morning, it is clear that we all agree it's time to work together as parliaments and religious leaders to bring peace and stability into the world. We all agree that both parties play a significant role in shaping societies, and one cannot be successful without the other in building peace. They always complement each other. Examples have been made from many countries. It is clear that the rule of law alone is not enough, and that lawmakers, as we have been told, are the least trusted, while the religious leaders are the most trusted. While it is important for these two groups to work together, parliamentarians are warned against infusing religion into party politics. It should always be for the good of the people rather than settling political scores. It should strive to assist communities to coexist despite their political inclinations or affiliations. This is because over the years, religion has proven to be a powerful and delicate phenomenon which has the potential to be used in both good and evil ways. That is, it is like a double-edged sword. It was also mentioned that intolerance, violence, and conflict emerged partly due to ignorance and lack of constructive interaction with each other. Education and constant engagements are key strategies for promoting peace and stability. Religious literacy for the lawmakers is key. Inclusion for all, especially the minority groups, at all levels of lawmaking is important. This includes also the non-believers. It is highly recommended that the IPU initiative of promoting interfaith dialogue should be adopted by all sister countries and continually so. It should be the order of the day. We have been warned that parliamentarians come and go, parliaments come and go, and they change colors time and again, but religion remains. I thank you. I now would like to make the following announcement. We shall meet here again tomorrow morning at 9 for the 2 thematic panels, and the closing sitting will be at 2:30 tomorrow. We have now concluded the general debate today. Thank you very much, and good night.